June 24th, 2026. We lost another fine musician, David Clayton Thomas. Wow, incredible. British Canadian musician, singer, songwriter, best known for Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the lead vocalist for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Wow. David Clayton Thomas began his music career in the early 1960s, working the clubs on Toronto's Yonge Street, where he discovered his love for singing and playing the blues. I didn't know he liked the blues. I didn't know that. Before moving to New York City in 1967, Clayton Thomas fronted a couple of local bands. First the Shays, then the Bossmen, one of the earliest rock bands with significant jazz influences. His main success came only a few difficult years later when he joined Blood, Sweat, and Tears, with whom he won the Grammy Award. David was inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. In 2007, his jazz rock composition, Spinning Wheel, which is one of my favorite songs. I do enjoy that song, really I do. And was enshrined in the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. In 2010, Clayton Thomas received a star on the Canadians' Walk of Fame. I didn't know they had a Walk of Fame in Canada. I didn't know that. But David Clayton Thomas, he was born in Surrey, England. He was the son of Fred Thompson. And his father, he was a decorated Canadian soldier in World War II. Clayton's mother, Frida May, played the piano, met Thompson when she came to entertain the troops at a London hospital. After the war, the family settled in Willowdale, Toronto. Clayton Thomas's father was an abusive alcoholic who beat him. That's not a good thing. He obviously had an early rough life. By the time Clayton Thomas was 14, he left home and was sleeping in parked cars and abandoned buildings and stealing food and clothing to survive. He was arrested several times for vagrancy, petty theft, and street brawls, and spent his teen years bouncing in and out of various jails and reformatories, including the Burwash Industrial Farm. David's first album, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which was released in December of 1968. Wow, a long time ago. I didn't know they were back that far. Despite being self-titled, it was actually the band's second album. It sold 10 million copies worldwide, which is really good for the 60s. All right, so the record topped the Billboard album chart for 7 weeks and charted for 109 weeks. It won 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year and Best Performance by a Male Vocalist. It featured 3 hit singles, You Made Me So Very Happy, Spinning Wheel, one I like, and When I Die. On the Hot 100, each peaked at number 2 and lasted 13 weeks, as well as a rendition of Billie Holiday's God Bless the Child. Seeking to capitalize on the newfound fame of the singer, in 1969, Decca Records purchased the master tapes of the blues-oriented Roman Records material, dubbed in horns to make it sound more like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and released the album David Clayton Thomas. Wow, self-titled. Hey, how about that, huh? Yeah, with Thomas fronting the band, Blood, Sweat, and Tears continued with a string of hit albums, including Blood, Sweat, and Tears 3, which featured Carole King's Heidi Ho and Clayton Thomas's Lucretia McEvil, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears 4, which yielded another Clapton Thomas penned hit single, Go Down Gamblin'. That's the way to go, I guess. And Lisa, Listen to Me. Blood, Sweat, and Tears' greatest hits album has, to date, reportedly chalked up over 7 million copies in worldwide sales. In the early years, Clayton Thomas lived on the road, traveling all over Europe, Australia, Asia, South America, and the United States and Canada with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. The constant touring began to take its toll. David Clayton Thomas left the band in 1972, exhausted by life on the road. Variety later described Clayton Thomas's decision to leave as ruining the band, who needed every bit of his sweat and swagger. By the mid-1970s, the founding members of the band began to drift away to start families and pursue their own musical ambitions. 1972, Thomas released his first Columbia solo album after Blood, Sweat, and Tears, simply titled David Clayton Thomas. In 1973, the second solo album, Tequila Sunrise. Might be a little careful with that one. Anyway, it was issued by Columbia. In 1974, he issued the Harmony Junction album on RCA Records. In 1975, Thomas returned to the front, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, again on the Columbia albums, New City, and in 1976, More Than Ever. In 1977, they released Brand New Day on the ABC label. In 1978, Thomas issued another solo album on ABC, titled simply Clayton. In 1980, Blood, Sweat, and Tears issued the MCA Records album Nuclear Blues, which also included Thomas. Later in the decade, Columbia issued the double live Blood, Sweat, and Tears album, live and improvised, again with Thomas. It was reported in the 30th May 1992 issue of Cashbox, Clayton Thomas was one of the artists on the Sedona Recording Company roster. In 2004, Clayton Thomas left New York for Toronto and launched an all-star 10-piece band. Wow, 10-piece. He then began touring and recorded almost a dozen albums under his own name. Imagine that. And as of this recording, there has been no listing of his cause of death. At 84 years old, we can pretty much just, assume. I don't want to jump the gun here, but he died in the hospital. They say he died peacefully. So, rest in peace. A musician gone. Well, I guess you don't realize it. We grow old with all these musicians and stuff. It's just the way it goes. Sometimes. And that's a little bit of history of David Clayton Thomas. Rest in peace, my friend. Wow, 84 years old he was. My heart goes out to his family, friends, any band members that are left. Hey, send my condolences. All right, like, subscribe, and share. I do appreciate that. See you in the next video. Great day. We'll see you.